Okay, so we are actually in education.digitalcreativeslearning.com. I want you to click on buy, and for you to access our LMS, which I am currently in, you have to key in buy and then use the code F360-AutoCAD to be inside the classroom. So once more, we are in working with AutoCAD and Fusion 360. So also suggesting everyone to, open up your Fusion 360, launch it now. To access the course, okay, type in F360-AutoCAD to access this for free. So I'm going to click buy now, hoping you're seeing my screen. Let's say I already have an account. Okay, so this is how it looks. Once more to our friends, we are currently in Digital Creatives Learning, and you can click to watch us live, and this one definitely has more audio fidelity, video and audio fidelity. Let's start now. We have a lot of things to do. Okay, so again, this is follow along. So I want you to head over to download the exercise files. Requesting everyone to now download the exercise files. So the link to the exercise files is here. Again, this is not me doing the purely doing the talking. You'll definitely be doing and you are required to manipulate, tinker with Fusion 360 right now. For those who would like to receive an Autodesk certificate of course completion. So definitely, if you're seeing the files, it's actually our set of AutoCAD. It's actually an AutoCAD, 3 AutoCAD DWG files. Okay, so what you're currently seeing now is Fusion 360. So I want you to click on your data panel. This one that looks like a Rubik's Cube. So for me, I have gone ahead and created a new project. Okay, and I named this as the date today. Okay. So again, encouraging everyone to follow along. Right after this session, you will also right away get your certificate of course completion. And and from time to time, definitely you'll be you'll be going on stage for me to check your work. So right away, we get instant feedback. So again, open up your Fusion 360, download the exercise file. Once more, it's in Digital Creatives Learning. And to access this for free, use the code F360-AutoCAD. So once more, our topic this afternoon is, is for the benefit of AutoCAD users who would like to utilize Fusion 360 as well. And of course, we're open for questions. If you have problems, you may share your screen too. Again, this live training is follow along. Okay, and for the benefit of those who are absolute beginners, yep, for the absolute beginners who would like to try out Fusion 360 and has the software right now running. So I'm going to minimize my data panel. Okay, I want you to type in or key in, hit letter R. So what does it say? It's actually invoking the command which is rectangle. So right now it's currently selecting a plane or planar face. Yep, creating a sketch, definitely from James Estrada. We're about to create a sketch, Sir James. So, yep, if you're familiar with the old school of doing stuff in paper, right? So consider this. In CAD, in Fusion 360, we are given three pieces of paper. Okay? And that paper is named as YX, XZ, and YZ. So currently, besides my cursor, it is now asking what plane or planar face. In other words, it's asking us what paper do we want to draw into. So, as an example, again, we are prompted to select a paper, and that paper is represented by YX, XZ, YZ. So for me, I prefer scribbling or sketching on the XZ plane. And this time, we are prompted to place our first corner, right? Prompted to select or to place our first corner. So let me left click slowly. Again, this is just a recap and for the benefit of those who are absolute beginners. Okay, so I just made a left click and I moved my cursor somewhere here on the lower right. I'm going to left click once more. Hit escape to disable the rectangle command. So in AutoCAD, if you can recall, this looks like a hatched region. So again, this is also a closed boundary. So if I delete this horizontal line, notice the difference. Again, we're doing a recall of creating 3D objects in AutoCAD, but we're in Fusion 360. So in AutoCAD, recall that it is also converting, right? Before we can turn an entity, a closed entity, into 3D, recall in AutoCAD, we are converting it to a region, right? To a region. So in Fusion 360, it's called as a profile. So now I am launching AutoCAD as well. So again, in Fusion 360, it's called a profile. I now have a profile, and I can head over to this tiny house. A good indicator or a visual cue that you're in sketch mode is you always uh, have this green check mark, which is finish sketch. So for this scenario, let's say we are done sketching. I'm going to click on finish sketch. And the difference as well with AutoCAD, notice below the command, the sketch that we did is registered here in the timeline. It's also available here on our browser, registered or named as Sketch 1. So I can turn off its visibility, turn off, turn on. Okay, so again, we now have a profile. So what can we do with the profile? We can turn this now into 3D. I want you to click on letter E. Hit letter E. Okay, the question is, what does letter E do? And to our participants, what does E represents in Fusion 360? Okay, so as mentioned by Sir Jose Maria Borlaza, it's extrude. So I'm now going to hit extrude, or I can head over up to our ribbon under solid. Okay, so here's extrude. So the next question is, okay, we are now prompted to select a profile. This one highlighted in blue. Okay, so I have deselected that. So if yours is not yet selected, of course, definitely. This is blank, so I'm going to hover over now on this profile. Left click. I now have one profile selected. I'm going to pull this up, making this now as a 3D object. Okay, selecting, okay. So the controls in Fusion 360, of course, is same with AutoCAD. So if I hold my mouse wheel, I'm currently pressing it down. So similar to AutoCAD, I'm doing a pan. So notice the change of my cursor. I'm now panning. And if I want to rotate or orbit this cube, it's simply holding Shift and holding my mouse wheel. Okay, so now I'm rotating the object. If I want to go to the default isometric view, it's simply heading here on this tiny house. Okay, same with rolling your scroll wheel, zooming out, zooming in, and if I zoom out and double click my mouse wheel, it goes to zoom extents. Again, same with AutoCAD. Okay, so yeah, as quick as that, we now have a 3D model, right? So going back, let's begin opening up like majority of the people. who are utilizing AutoCAD is mainly for 2D, right? 2D use, such as, notice here, I have an architecture title block, number 1.dwg. I'm going to open that in AutoCAD. So this is how it looks like. Okay, so now I am showing you from our exercise files. I opened up architecture title block 1.dwg. So again, it's utilizing AutoCAD files into Fusion 360. So with that in mind, I'm going to head back, or before I head back to Fusion 360, I'm going to hover my cursor over here. So notice the location is now highlighted. I'm going to hit Control C. Once more, I have selected this path, Control C to copy. And then I'm going to open up, head back to Fusion 360. I'm going to click on Show Data Panel, the one that looks like a Rubik's Cube. And from here, I'm going to select Upload. Okay, so I'm going to click Upload now. I can drag and drop, or I can hit Select Files. I'm going to hit Control V to paste that location. And I'm going to double left click or simply click on Architecture block, Title block 1, hit Open. But for me, I prefer double left clicking. We call it tiki tick. Okay, and I'm going to select Upload. But of course, because I have created a project folder, notice the location. Of course, this may be different from yours. I'm now going to hit Upload. So it's now uploading, and from here, we'll be seeing how Fusion 360 converts or interprets a .dwg file. So it's now complete. So notice here, again, this is the file, the drawing file that we opened. Okay, so heading back to our data panel, I hope you're seeing architecture title block 1. I'm going to right click, this time right click, and select Open. So it's now opening. So I actually opened another instance of Fusion 60, and while waiting for that file to be opened, the next step is I want you to open up Abyss Dining Sets by Caw. So again, I have another instance of Fusion 360 open. So I'm going to hit Upload. Okay, select that file. And that file is Abyss Dining Sets by Caw. Tiki tick, which means double click. Tiki tick. Okay, selecting Upload. Okay, I also opened that AutoCAD file in AutoCAD. That DWG file is also now opened in AutoCAD. So let me uh, Orbit this around. Change the visual style to hidden, or how about conceptual? So, yep, initially we opened up a 2D. Recall a 2D DWG file in AutoCAD. Right now, I opened up, again, the file name is Abyss Dining Sets by Co. So this one is a 3D object made in AutoCAD. And recall, I imported that into Fusion 360. I'm now going to hit close. So notice here on the left side on our project panel, I can now see Abyss Dining Sets by Co. I'm going to right click now, select open. So now I simply minimized again our data panel, and from here you can now see how Fusion 360 translated and imported that AutoCAD file. So again, this is showing you that whatever you have made in AutoCAD, it's all reusable in Fusion 360. So this is actually the goal of this live training, is for you to appreciate, okay, how we can work with AutoCAD files in Fusion 360. So in addition to that, if I bring in a different file, so notice here in Fusion 360, I can conduct simulation. I can do manufacturing. I can program this into CNC and have this manufactured. I can generate the tool path. Okay, so like for this one, for simulation, Fusion 360 is very, very powerful, unlike AutoCAD. Notice here, I can, if that AutoCAD file was a BEAM, BEAM, right? I can conduct a static stress analysis. I can do modal frequency. I can do electronics, cooling, thermals. I can do structural buckling, thermal stress. And for those, again, who were given access to Fusion 360 right now, hoping you get to appreciate the power of this software. So again, we now have that table and chairs in Fusion 360. So next step, I'm going to expand bodies. So informing you that this type of icon, this is a solid body. Okay, this is a surface body. Okay, I hope everyone has downloaded and opened up this file. So feel free to tinker around. And notice as well, in comparison to the cube that we created earlier, where's that? Recall, it has a timeline. When I say timeline, it is where the features, the command, are registered. Like for here, recall that after doing a sketch, right, we created an extrusion. So it's all registered here below on the timeline. So going back to the other instance of Fusion 360 with the Abyss, the table and chairs. So notice here it's not available. Okay? And a good practice, please do, again, let me reiterate, keep this in mind. If you imported something and the timeline is not available, okay, the next step would be heading over to our main file, okay, the one in the hierarchy. I'm going to right-click this and select Capture Design History. So encouraging everyone, once more, with the Abyss Dining Sets by Co opened up in Fusion 360, I want you to head over to the main file, right-click, again, right-click, and select Capture Design History. So right now, if I create another hole, I'm going to sketch on this table's surface, hit E for extrude, selecting that profile, pulling this arrow down. Okay, selecting OK. And notice, okay, below, now, the sketch and that extrusion command was captured. Okay, so I can quickly delete or undo this command by selecting them both, holding Control and left click, hitting delete on my keyboard. So in addition, we can isolate things. Like for this one, I can select the leg of this chair, which is body 231. I can right click on this, head to the bottom, selecting isolate. So again, this is a surface body. I can create a window selection. Same with AutoCAD. Window selection to select it all. Head over to surface. So let's check if stitching this up would make this into a solid body. So selecting stitch. It's looking nice. I'm seeing a green color. So take note, this is currently a surface. We're going to convert this hopefully into a body. Selecting OK. So the challenge here, it doesn't work. The challenge here is, of course, re-editing this surface, closing this up watertight for the stitch to convert this into a solid body. So how about raising up the tolerance, let's say, to 0.2? Still doesn't work. How about 0.5? So I'm showing you some of the challenges when converting a surface body into a solid body. But of course, this is still reusable. So to enable that, the visibility of them all, I can right-click on the bodies folder and select Show All. Okay, another thing that we can do is I'm going to head over to Change Workspace. You want you to click on this drop down and head over to Render. Okay, this is one of the great advantage of Fusion 360. It has a very good render engine. So this one, we have the option to do a local render, or we can do a cloud render, which passes that computing power to the to the cloud. Okay, so how about I'm going to hit A, which is the shortcut for appearance. Again, A for appearance. And I'm going to head over, how about wood? So now we are about to customize the appearance, of these objects in Fusion 360. So let me, how about downloading mahogany or pine? How about pine? Let me download pine. Okay. And notice on the top, it says apply to. We have two options. Applying this into a body. Again, this tabletop named as body 1. Or we have the option to simply select a target face. So let's check the difference. Let's say for faces. Again, letter A for appearance. Enabling faces. I'm going to zoom in and drag and drop. Left click and hold. I'm going to drop it on this surface, on this face. Okay, so notice the difference. Again, it was simply applied on this target face. So if we prefer having this on the whole body itself, I'm going to tick or enable bodies components, heading back to pine. Left click and hold. Drag and drop over here, or heading over to our browser, dropping this to our body 1. And selecting remove. So if I zoom in, it's now applied to the whole body. So in addition, of course, when you're going to import and that uh, resulted in tons of bodies or components, of course, you can get organized by simply, let's say for body 1, I can rename this to left click once more. Let's name this as tabletop. Okay, I can head over to appearance once more. Head over to in this design, pine. I can right click on this, select edit. Let's say the scale is uh, too much or too low. So notice here, I can adjust the settings, making this proportional. Selecting done. Okay, so let's say, how about customizing this, the fabric of this chair. So I'm going to select this face, right click. Let's locate this on our browser. So this is a body. So I am seeing up to here, up to here is the whole chair. So with this bodies and surface says selected, I can right click. Let's isolate this. And how about customizing this chair? Customizing its appearance. Heading over to our view cube. I can hit letter A. For appearance, how about walnut? Let's try to change the appearance of this surface, which is in color orange. into a walnut type. So the body is, again, so this is the body. So I'm going to turn off that body, hit A for appearance, and let's select all of this surface. Let's check what will happen if I am going to change the appearance of a surface. So drag and drop. Of course, I can definitely drag and drop it individually on this surface. But right now, I have all of this surface body selected. Drag and drop, left click and hold once more. I'm still holding my left mouse button, release. So it's now a walnut, but definitely darker. So turning on body 33. How about customizing this body, solid body? I can head over to fabric. Oh yes, we have a fabric here. Let's say I prefer a yellow fabric. So that fabric downloaded. Let's apply to. I'm going to enable bodies components. Apply to body 33. So there you go. We have now customized the appearance of this chair. Hitting close. Okay, heading back to bodies, or let us do a quick render of this chair. Okay, so let's now tinker around with the rendering capability of Fusion 360. Let's try to turn this chair into a realistic product render. So we have now customized the appearance. Again, this all came from an AutoCAD file, a 3D AutoCAD file. Okay? In addition to that, I can change the background. So to do that, I'm going to Scene Settings. I'm going to head over to Environment Library. Okay, let's say I prefer a dry lake bed. So I'm going to left click and hold, drag and drop here on the blank canvas. So I'm going to release. So notice the change of the scene. And to see that dry lake bed, we need to head back to Settings tab on under background. I want you to select environment. So this is the environment we're now in. In addition to that, I can change position. I can rotate so that the shadow goes over at somewhere around 140 degrees. So hitting close. Okay? Of course, definitely we can scale up as well the ground. So I'm going to head back to scene settings. I'm going to select position once more. Okay, I can do a reset. I can also flatten the ground. And by flattening the ground, we can now rescale the ground. So I can make this much smaller. How about this type? This looks more proportional. I'm going to hit close. Okay? And from here, again, you have the opportunity to do a cloud render. So for cloud rendering, it uses cloud credits. Now, for me, I have around 100,000, but of course, if you have consumed such cloud credits, you can purchase it again uh, from Autodesk. Okay, so I think I have a good machine. I prefer doing the local render. So let's click on in canvas render. So notice below on the lower right, I can select this indicator or slider. I can move this to final or do an infinite render. Let's do an infinite. And from here, again, my machine is now working its way, doing the computations, the bounces of the photons for us to create a more realistic render. And as you can see here, I have an elapsed time. Again, this will depend, of course, on the number of bodies, components, the file size that you are going to render. So definitely if this was a room wherein I added bulbs, of course, the computation for the bounces of that photons coming from those several light bulbs. So here, the computation is simply the sun. Okay, so it's now doing a render. How about checking back on our 2D drawing? So I headed back to our first instance of Fusion 360, wherein we opened up a 2D drawing. So I'm going to close our data panel. So this is the output, the outcome, the interpretation of this AutoCAD file in Fusion 360. So from here, notice about going into this area. Notice here, we're seeing profiles. Again, when we say profile, definitely we can do an extrusion, right? So from here, as an example, but before we do such extrusion, I'll head back to our main file. I'm going to right click here, select Capture Design History. Okay, while waiting for that, let's head back to our render. So from this scene, the realization on this exercise file is definitely this is a large file. But of course, you may probably have your own simple 2D AutoCAD file, 2D drawing. Okay, going back to our render, of course, you have the option to quickly save this or wait until it goes final. So let's not wait. But of course, we will get back on this design. But for now, let's capture this. Let's download this image. I'm going to select Capture Image. Okay, the resolution would be the whole window size. I'm going to hit OK. And I have options. I'm going to save this locally as well. So I'm going to copy of my target location. It's on the exercise files. Okay. Under save to my computer, it's currently ticked. So heading over to this locate or ellipsis, Control V. I'm going to, agree with this default file name, selecting save. Okay, and yeah, going to view large icons. I now have the render of that chair. So again, it's one of the advantage of working with AutoCAD, bringing your AutoCAD 3D file into Fusion 360. So again, feel free to tinker around with that file and definitely your own file. So going back, I'm going to head over to our data panel. So notice I have resized that window. Okay, so because I have accidentally resized that window, the render was reset. So it's again starting, going back. So it goes back, re-rendering this whole scene. Okay, moving forward, let's discover another way on working with AutoCAD 3D files. I'm going to hit upload, select files, and this time we're going to select 3D bench vice assembly. Okay, double left click and select upload. Okay, so we now have the 3D bench vice assembly .dwg opened. So this is now your final exam for you to get a hold of the certificate of course completion. So I hope everyone, to those who are currently in attendance, to those who are participating right now, yep, I hope you are registered. Okay, so I'm now going to hit close. This is uh, that 3D file, AutoCAD 3D file opened up in Fusion 360, and let me show you the how it looks like in AutoCAD. So changing the visual style to conceptual. Okay, so this is what we are currently working on or about to work on. And if I can do a properties, we actually have three solid bodies here in this AutoCAD file. Okay? So this would be your final exam to get a hold of that course completion certificate. So again, the first thing we have to do, okay, is I'm going to, of course, recall the importance of having the timeline or the actions that we did recorded. So again, right-clicking on that upper or main hierarchy, selecting Capture Design History. So if I twirl this down, same with what we have seen in AutoCAD, those bodies. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 solid bodies. Okay, so the goal, yep, in this part of our training is to turn this into a dynamic assembly. We have to see how it looks like when making such parts move and how it affects the other parts. So with this, a good tip when importing um, components or bodies into Fusion 360 is for an assembly is to locate where should be or what is the supposed to be parent component. So from what I am seeing here is this body, which is body 1. Let me isolate this. I prefer this one should be resting. I think on these two plates. Okay, and that two plates, I'm going to select this face, right click, find in browser. Oh, I'm sorry, that two plates is body 4 and body 5. Okay, so make it a habit to identify again the parent component, because what we're about to do is to remove the degrees of freedom uh, of certain parts or components. So this is currently a body. Now for us to have this as an assembly, okay, we have to convert this body into a component. To some softwares out there, it's called as parts. Yep, to those who are familiar with SolidWorks, I think it's called parts, SLDPRT. That's a part. In Fusion 360, it's called a component. Okay, so I'm going to select body 1, holding shift, body 6. To select all of these bodies, I'm going to right click and create components from bodies. Okay, so if this is now a component, a part, this is now free moving. Okay, I'm currently moving or tinkering with component 3. Okay, so let's relocate that parent assembly. I consider this as the parent components, which is 7 and 8. Or we can also consider this component 1 as the parent component itself. So, yep, it depends on you. I think it's much better if we have component 1 as the parent. So I'm going to hit component 1, right click and select ground. When we say ground, it's removing its degrees of freedom. So I'm not able to move this body anymore. So notice, grounded. I can move these parts. Yep, moving them out. Okay. So again, what we're seeing here is an AutoCAD 3D file imported into Fusion 360. So the first thing I am seeing is I think we need to, let's say we have to assemble this going inside, or the face of this plate going to this face of this vise. So I'm seeing if there's a hole there, it may probably be secured rigidly by a screw. So I'm going up, selecting assemble, selecting joint. And I'm seeing a countersink or a screw with a head. So with that, we can also rotate this component. So this is component 7. I'm going to hit M for move. Let me select this rotate handle. Selecting OK. I can right click once more and repeat that move copy command, selecting this component. Okay, let's rotate this. Selecting OK. And now let's apply joints. So hitting J for joint, heading over to the motion tab. So what I'm seeing here, it is possibly a rigid because there's going to be a screw here that will also go there. Okay, and next we have defined the target motion, which is rigid. I'm going to head over to position. Okay, and notice here there's this disc shape with uh, also has or is being represented by an axis. We have the Z there in blue, the green, and the X in red. So this is the snap point. Now this plays an important role because this will, of course, when we define what the snap point is, it will mate with that other snap point. So to understand this more, I'm going to define our joint origin snap point, or otherwise called as joint origin. So notice if I hover over here, we're highlighting the cylindrical face. So if I hold control, notice, and move my cursor out, it means that we are locked on this face. But if I release my control key, okay, I'm going to release my control button. I can now hover over and highlight other faces, okay, where my cursor is. So my target here is this face. I'm going to hold control and left click. So joint origin defined. I will go back to this component, rotate this, and select this joint origin. So notice what will happen. The joint origin from our first component will mate with this joint origin of component 2. So I'm now going to hit left click. Okay, so it goes in there. Selecting OK. If I hover over this face and try to move, of course, because it's rigid, rigid is same as being grounded. Next, how about this one? Let's try defining the joint origin here, hitting J, the shortcut for. It's under Assemble, Joint. So left click that joint origin and left click on that joint origin. Selecting OK. Next, of course, definitely this shaft should go in here, right? So the appropriate joint for that. Let me ask our participants, what do you think is the appropriate motion type for this shaft to go in here? Is it rigid? Is it revolute? Is it slide? Is it cylindrical? Is it pin slot? Is it planar? Is it ball? What do you think? Yeah, asking our participants. Revolute. Yes, it's also possible, revolute. So if we insert this, let's say this is a shaft, insert this, of course, definitely it will revolve, it will spin, but of course there's another set of motion that will go with respect to the x-axis. It will move back and forth, right? So it's not only revolute. Pahinga nun, requesting T. So it will not only be having a revolute, but it will also have a linear action, right? With respect to x axis. So hitting J, the appropriate joint for that is actually cylindrical. It gives the opportunity to rotate, to revolve, and to move back and forth. So having the type as cylindrical, getting over to position. So I prefer any of this joint origins will do, but I prefer this joint origin over here. Left click, heading over to this face, holding control just to lock it on this cylindrical face, and left click. So selecting OK. So notice, yep, I can spin this around and move this back and forth. So we're now creating a dynamic assembly. So yep, can you do that in AutoCAD? Right? The question is, can you do that too in AutoCAD? It's different here. There's tons of things that we can do with an AutoCAD file imported into Fusion 360. We can do motion study. We can assign or drive joints. We can do motion links. So moving back, we have now inserted the shaft or rod into that hole. So this as well is our next target. Okay, so what do you think, guys? Should be the appropriate motion for this component to go over to this component? Ayan. Another question. What do you think should be the appropriate motion for this component to go over here? Yes, Sir James is correct. Linear with respect to the shaft. So for that linear, it's actually called slider in Fusion 360. So with slider, I will go over on this edge. But of course, heading over to position tab. Again, take note of the joint origin or this disk's position. So I'm going to head over to that edge. So if these other components is bothering my view, so this is component 9 and component 1. I have selected them both. Right click. I'm going to isolate them both. Yep, for me to have a clearer view. Hitting J. Motion type slider. Again, heading back to position. So notice the position of that joint origin. The red axis, x-axis pointing up, the green pointing to the right. Okay? So with that, I'm going to the other component. Here, notice again the orientation of our joint origin. Left click. And hit OK. So now we're having a linear motion like what Sir James Estrada mentioned earlier. Okay, going back, heading to 3D Bench Vice Assembly. Let's show all components. Next step, how about having this rod be inserted on this hole? So again, it's the same, hitting J. Motion type for that would be cylindrical. Heading to position, selecting this joint origin, heading over to this cylindrical face, holding control just to lock on this face, and selecting this joint origin. So selecting OK. So hoping you are following along because this would be our final exam. I want you to recreate what I did. So next step is to have this end pieces. Let me hit J. I think the appropriate for this is rigid. I'm going to, heading back to position again, hover over this edge. Hold control, selecting this joint origin and select, or hovering over this face, holding control just to make sure, and selecting this joint origin. Left click. Selecting OK. Let's check. Yep, looks nice. I can now rotate this. Yep, in addition, we can, for demonstration purposes, I can also, let's say, going to front view. Right, so I think this should be, this face should be mated with this face. So the appropriate motion type, I think for this one would be, this time it would be revolute. Okay, so hovering over, heading back to position, this face, holding control, selecting this joint origin, and hovering over this face, selecting that joint origin. So I'm seeing a conflict. So if that happens, we can go into wireframe view. So what I did, I pressed Control 7, Control 6. It's actually under visual style, shaded with visible edges only, and wireframe. So we're having a conflict there. So of course, in the real world, definitely this would turn and, of course, push this component, right? So right now, if I'm moving this, I'm going way past, beyond the other components. Of course, and to actually simulate the realistic condition, if I push this to the left, definitely, I should be pushing this as well. And this will slam into this face, right? So to do that, it's heading over to assemble. Okay, I'm going to enable contact sets once more, and I selected enable contact set. Again, enable contact set. Let me hit undo. Assemble, enable contact set. So notice if I head back again under assemble, I now have a new contact set. Yep, giving you a few seconds to do what I just did. Yep, we're about to finish this afternoon class session. Oh, let me play around now with our Abyss dining set. So I'm going to insert the bench vise assembly into this table, on top of this table. So I'm going to right click, insert. This time it's utilizing or using insert into current design. So if the scale or the unit matches, ayan, ang laki niya. So kailangan pala natin paliitan itong assembly na to. So I'm going to hit OK. And for me pala to place this, we have to resize. And kapareho niyan. Recall, I forgot to set capture design history. So let me head back to design. Right click. It already has actually pala. So design. Going back to our data panel. Right click. Insert into current design. So now I want that vice assembly on top of our table. Okay, selecting OK, and I want this turned off. So yeah, this is the assembly. This is actually body 9, so turning that off. Now let's resize this. SC. So we have a scale. So point. Saan kaya magandang ilagay ang point na yan? But the entity would be this assembly, pero ayaw niya. Okay. Again, SC scale. Or, I think I have to unlink. Right click. Yep, we can break that link. Because having the link turned on means whatever update I did to this one, let's say I'm going to hit letter A. And let's change the color of some of our components. Let's say this one, I want this to be red, this to be green. How about this to be blue? So close, hitting Control S for save. So notice if I head back to Abyss dining set, I have a prompt telling me there's a latest milestone or version. So simply clicking on this one. So this should be the color of this. Ayan. So now it's reflecting. Okay, and from here as well, of course, we can break that link. Okay, so I'm going to right click on our bench vise, break link. So it's simply select capture position para ma-retain natin yung position niya. Again, SSC. Parang isa-isa ata to. For us to rescale this. Let me activate this, SSC. Ayan, so I made a window selection. So confirmed, window selection. Palitin pa natin. How about 0.1? Oh, let's say it's 0.1. Okay? So, I'm going to activate the assembly. So whenever you make changes specifically to a component, you have to activate it, huh? Just a reminder for those who would like to utilize assembly in Fusion 360. So let's now put this on top of the table. So hitting J, motion type definitely would be planar, diba? Planar. So selecting any of this joint origins, I prefer this one. Going to our tabletop. Oh, how about this? Selecting this joint origin. So selecting OK. It's now on top of that table. So again, lots of possibilities. So from here again, yep, I can head back to render, head to scene settings, reposition the sun's location so that the shadow would be at a negative 50 degrees. And from here, I can re-render this. Yep, so yeah. So again, it depends on the environment. And you can customize. You may upload your own HDR. For those who are familiar with the rendering. High dynamic range, right? EXR files, HDR. You can also customize that or input your own, import your own. It's actually here, attach custom environment. So I hope you're familiar with the sites like, I'm not sure if it's available, HDR Haven. HDR Haven. They have lots of free HDRs that you can utilize. So here it is, HDRs, so environments, custom environments. So if you're familiar with Maya, it's another Autodesk software. You can do EXRs. You can import. You can play around or do a lot of combinations. You can also bring this if you want more control with textures. So recall we added textures here, like for this tabletop, it's wood texture. But if you want control, definitely, or more customization, highly suggesting you put these files, import these files into 3ds Max. Texture it using Adobe Substance, and then render it using Arnold. Okay.